नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ाऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम रब्बिश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली व कुल रब्बी ज़िदनी इल्मन अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला सय्यिदिना मुहम्मद व अला आलिहि व अस्हाबिहि व बारिक व सल्लम। Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the greatest good for greatest number of the people. Verily you, O Muhammad, are at the exalted standard of character. Wa innaka la ala khulqin azim. So dear viewers, in the book Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the world changer, we are going to continue from the page 61 where we left off. As sunset gradually draped Makkah in darkness, trumpets resounded from the city's hill, proclaiming Abdul Muttalib's imminent death. 2 weeks earlier, the 83-year-old chief elder had unexpectedly taken ill. All Makkah entered into a formal state of civic mourning as the city's women began to wail. Makkans believed a dying elder deserved to hear the lamentation of his people before he succumbed. The old man lay prostrate in a white Egyptian tunic. He was in his bedroom, which was illuminated only by small lanterns. His daughters had gathered around him, cooling his feverish forehead with damp cloths and reciting flowery poetry about his life. In pagan Arabia, which lacked the concept of an afterlife, friends and relatives delivered eulogies before someone died so that the dying person might pass away in a happy state. Because society expected men to remain stoic, Abdul Muttalib's sons watched their dying father silently. Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, however, could not hold back his tears. He lay at his grandfather's side, hugging the old man. For 2 years they had slept beside each other on the same mattress. By day they had also been inseparable. Yet now a final separation loomed. Abdul Muttalib motioned to his son Abu Talib to draw near. "Take care of this son of mine," he said in a weak voice while caressing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam head. "Be a father to him, as though he is yours or even greater." Abu Talib bowed in acceptance, declaring, "I shall fulfill your bequest to the best of my abilities. I will keep him safe as though he is my own body, flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood." The dying grandfather then tucked his hand under Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam chin, raising the crying boy's face so he could look him in the eyes. With his last breath, Abdul Muttalib declared, "O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, let your name be eternal. Become an exemplary role model." Then his eyes closed. The women in the room wailed, striking their faces in despair. The men watched silently, tears rolling down their cheeks. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam clung to his grandfather for the next hour. No one dared to pry him loose until at last Barakah intervened and led him away. The next morning, the elder's funeral procession headed north towards Makkah's main cemetery, Jannatul Maula, the elevated forest. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his uncle Abu Talib walked at the front of the procession, while the remaining 8 brothers carried the bier. The symbolism of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, alone among the grandchildren, leading the procession, marked him as Abdul Muttalib's protege and spiritual heir. Abu Talib's presence at the front marked him as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam new guardian. Following the 3-day funeral rites, the young boy moved into his uncle's home along with Barakah. Abdul Muttalib had carefully selected Abu Talib to be Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam new guardian. He might have chosen his wealthiest son, yet Abdul Uzza, the provider of fresh dates, during Amina's labor, lacked his brother's compassion and sensitivity. Abu Talib's easygoing and accepting nature made him the ideal candidate to take care of traumatized boy afflicted with the loss of yet another dear relative. Moreover, Abu Talib's devoted wife, Fatima bint Asad, possessed sophisticated social and emotional intelligence. Women struggling with marital crisis and parenting challenges regularly turned to Fatima for counseling. Fatima had to muster the full power of her therapeutic skills to care for the newest member of her household. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had withdrawn in a repeat of the mourning process he had experienced 2 years earlier when his mother died. In a state of shock, he hardly spoke, and when he did, it was with a feeble voice. For the family meals, Fatima would prepare a large platter for the entire household. Yet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sat silently to the side as his cousins gobbled down all the food. Fatima began setting aside a plate for her nephew in advance, and she made a point to dine alongside him to ensure he actually ate. Fatima took a sunrise walk every morning in the hills surrounding Makkah. The exercise was precious alone, time before her large household awoke. Yet she began to invite Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to join her. She would rouse him before dawn and hold his hand as they traversed rocks glowing soft violet and orange beneath the rising sun. Their breath would condense in the cool morning air as oryxes and jerboas bustled in the distance and falcons swooped overhead, scanning the terrain for their breakfast. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mostly remained quiet, but Fatima made conversation the whole way, pointing out the different creatures stirring around them and recounting stories from the previous day. Following the lead of her late father-in-law, Fatima sensed that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had enormous potential, yet she worried that in his traumatized state he might withdraw into complete silence. One day, the dew's path brought them to a bridge traversing a small ravine outside Makkah. Because Makkah lacked any trees, bridges were constructed of palm fiber ropes. As Fatima and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam crossed the rickety rope bridge, and she seized the moment to share a therapeutic insight. A natural process that split the earth had formed the ravine below. Rather than remain stuck on one side, feeling helpless, someone had woven this structure to make traversing the gulf possible, and others benefited from the person's hard work. The rope, though formed from the dead material, had become a vital connecting force. Using the metaphor of the rope bridge, Fatima encouraged Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam not to withdraw, despite being split from his grandfather. She advised him to recognize how something that is usually discarded can have immense value. Salah, the word for these bridges, had come to mean connection. Guiding Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam across the bridge, Fatima urged him to repair the connections in his life. She pointed out that the rope bridge required constant maintenance as its fragile fibers withered with age. Drawing new knots preserved the bridge's strength. Under Fatima's guidance, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam began to emerge from isolation, though he still held back from forging deep relationship with others. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam soon became known in Mecca as an affable and friendly young man with many acquaintances. He remained forever grateful to Fatima for drawing him out when no one else knew how. When she died decades later, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam buried her himself after wrapping her body in his trademark green tunic. She stepped in to serve as my mother after I lost my mother. He declared in tribute at her graveside. She believed in me and helped me through my grief. Fatima's mentorship enabled Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, other foster mother, the newly liberated Baraka, to move out. She married and had a son of her own. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw her regularly but continued to live with his aunt and uncle and develop relationships with their children. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent much of his day shadowing his uncle Abu Talib and assisting with deliveries of merchandise and performing other errands. One day Abu Talib and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were walking through the market when a nomad with amulets dangling from his crude leather garments glared at them and started screaming. His piercing black eyes, encircled with kohl to reduce the sun's glare, locked on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the nomad's braided white beard shook. The old man was an expert in the ancient art of firasa, literally unveiling the hidden, a divination skill Arabs used to reveal an individual's character and destiny. He had come to the city from his desert encampment to read the faces, hands, and other physical characteristics of Makkah's children, charging parents for the examination. When his gaze fell on young Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, however, the firasa specialist was captivated. "Bring the boy to me," he shouted in a raspy voice as Abu Talib drew Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam away. "He will one day become master of great empires." The market crowd laughed at the nomad's dramatic performance and dismissed the aging master as a senile old man. Yet one 12-year-old girl amid the mocking swarm suspected there might be something more to the old man's hysteria. Her name was Khadija. Abu Talib was shaken by the incident. He had yanked Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam out of the market before the situation escalated and reported the details to his wife. When they returned home, Fatima wondered whether the firasa expert had perceived the same unique qualities in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Abdul Muttalib had recognized. She urged her husband to nurture the young boy in order to develop his full potential. Maybe it was time for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to accompany Abu Talib on the caravan journey to Damascus, she suggested. Abu Talib rejected the idea out of hand. He had made a pledge to safeguard Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Staying in Makkah was safer. For 2 years, Fatima kept after her husband, challenging him to stop confining the boy. Finally, when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was 10 years old, Abu Talib relented. The evening before the caravan was set to depart, Fatima radhiyallahu anhu and Abu Talib informed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he would be accompanying his uncle. Excited and nervous, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam rushed off to share the news with Baraka. As the two sat beneath the stars, Baraka recalled details of northern Arabian landscape which she had last seen as a child. The next morning, the dew seemed to dance as it evaporated, whirling above hundreds of camels laden with goods. Merchants from all over the region had gathered to join the Meccan caravan, both for the safety it afforded and the advantage of Meccan's tax-exempt status in Byzantine territory. Wives bid their husbands farewell, handing them 4 pebbles as charms to ward off evil from all 4 directions. Influenced by his monotheistic mother, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had no interest in charms, so Fatima handed him a different gift for the journey: a small goatskin water pouch. As scores of trumpets thundered, camels rose like plants sprouting from the barren landscape. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had briefly joined the caravan 4 years earlier for the trip to Yasrib, but this time he was setting out on the full journey to Damascus and riding without the company of Amina and Baraka. Driving his own camel was a big deal. as he mounted the beast. Someone handed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam its akal, an adjustable securing rope. When the camel was in a seated position, akal was tied around its right knee to keep it from standing. Indeed, the Quran uses the word akal, intellect, 41 times, applying it figuratively to evoke leveraging mind and logic to unlock flow and flexibility. As Makkah receded, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam held right to the camel's reins. The sensitive 10-year-old sorrowfully recalled the last time he had joined the caravan. Then, with his mother by his side, Abu Talib saw tears rolling down his nephew's cheek as their entourage headed out into the desert. So this is the end of the chapter, The Orphan, and this is the page number 66 of the book. And Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu he remembered last time when he traveled with his mother. So by remembering his mother, he started crying, like on the tears came in his eyes. So we saw that an orphan child changed the world. Ya Muhammada kun rajula. I just like this sentence a lot. So inshallah, in the next video we will do the chapter number 3, which is apprentice, and we are going to continue. This book has 347 pages and we finished 66 pages so far. So I start making very short videos, so you don't get bored. And if you at the end of the video bottom, if you see the bottom where the label is like a description of the video is, if you click on the more, you will get the summary of the whole video. And if you summarize it, at the end of the summary there are different questions that popped up, and those questions are basically taken from the same reading. So when you click on a question, it will give you answer, and that's how you know that what is important and what to remember in the reading in the seerah. And another thing is, if you copy and paste the summary in the chat GPT, and you can just translate it into any language you want. For example, if the summary is popping out in Hindi language, you can get it translated in English, Urdu, or any other language. So this is one of the great use of the AI, that if you feed the information, you can, but that is not 100% accurate. You should always check the main resource, but this is something you can use the AI for Islam. So inshallah, see you next time. Till then, Allah Hafiz. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayhi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.